Hello from Houston, Texas. This is your favorite French realtor, and today we're going to be talking about zip codes. Hello. So this is part of a series on zip codes. Every once in a while, I will stray a little bit to talk about specific areas of town, like I recently did a segment on the museum district. But I'm back to my original endeavor, which is to help you discover different zip codes that we have in this beautiful town of ours, Houston, Texas. And by the way, this is rodeo time. See, rodeo. Okay, so rodeo. Rodeo is a big deal in this town. I'm not going to talk about the rodeo. I may allude to the rodeo, but here's the shirt. So today we're going to be talking about EaDo. EaDo. Now, if you're familiar with Soho in New York, which is short for South of Houston Avenue. Well, EaDo, it's east of downtown. It's kind of something. And what I would like to mention to you when it comes to EaDo is the revitalization efforts that have taken place there. It's also a fun place to be. There's a lot of nightlife there. There are a lot of really cool restaurants alongside Chartres and Saint-Emmanuel. And these are the streets that are basically just on the other side of 59, kind of on the other side from the George O. Brown Convention Center. So it's easy to get to. There's decent parking on those streets. Parking is a big deal in Houston because, sometimes we fall a little bit short. But over there, no problem. And the other thing that they have in EaDo is the light rail. So the light rail, there's quite a bit of history there too, because it was first introduced, the whole idea of the light rail was introduced in the early 80s in Houston. And the Houstonians were basically, oh, heck to the no light rail. And it took 20 years for the first line to actually open up. So the first line of light rail opened up in 2004, and that was the red line. And then after that, they added a couple of lines, the green lines and the purple line. And the two that are running kind of, in EaDo are the green and the purple one. I would encourage you to check into this because this is actually a very cool way, an inexpensive way, an easy way to discover Houston. I mean, you can hop in and out of those lines. And on the website, when you go on the website for Metro, which is our transit authority in Houston, they have actually a little tag where they tell you, well, if you want to do this, you stop here and then you start again and you stop here and you can see that. Anyway, so it's kind of a little touristic thing. It's pretty neat. The other thing about the light rail is I was just talking about parking. Depending on where you're going. Okay, for instance, I said I was not going to talk about the rodeo, but here I am. So I'm going to go to the rodeo, right? Because it's happening this month and you got to do it. So I'm not going to go to the Energy Park or wherever the rodeo is and park there. Oh, no, don't do that. What you want to do is find a parking space alongside the light rail area, park, and then hop on the light rail because the light rail is going to stop right in front of the rodeo arena. Okay, so that's what you want to do. Same thing for the medical center, huge. It's very, very large. And frankly, parking there can take you 30 to 45 minutes. Who wants to do this? And it's expensive. Go park somewhere like at Herman Park and then hop on the rail and then go. Food for thought, okay? Just a little PSA here. The public transit system in Houston, when we talk about it internally or externally, we tend to say like it's not the greatest. I mean, this is not a town where people hop on the bus on a regular basis. It's just not. We love our cars in Texas, and Houston is no exception. And there are so many cars on the roads and highways, and most of them only have one person in them. Yes, we do know that. What can we say? That's the way it is. But that said, though, those numbers are pretty good. And I have to look this up, but just to give you an idea, In 2021, 45 million people actually used the transit system, not just the light rail, but the buses and everything else. So I mean, it's working. It's working. All right, art section. These shows are about art, food, and real estate. So now that I've given you some information about our light rail system of all things, and I've told you that this is the way to go to the rodeo, I'm going to switch to the art part. So the art part, let me start with Talento Bilingue. This is such a nice little community center. It's located at the corner of Jensen and Navigation. So we're talking about the northeast part of the downtown area, just off of downtown. I belong to a French theater troupe. Just that's something I started, because I've got nothing to do, I guess. No, that's a joke. And I'm enjoying it so much. And this is where we go for workshops, and this is where we go for our performances. They have a very, very nice amphitheater. They have a nice stage, and they can sit about 200 people, I think. So it's very, very cool. It's also an art center. This is a nonprofit organization that was just recently purchased by Mecca. Mecca is also a nonprofit organization that was incorporated in the late 70s. They're located in the old 6th Ward of the Washington Corridor. And they have programs that have been recognized nationally. So they are really producing a lot of very, very talented student artists. Definitely something for you to look into. What we also have in the EaDo area is Warehouse Live. So talk about, that's exactly what it is. It's a warehouse, but it's a concert venue. And I go there, not so much for concerts, because I hate to tell you, I don't go to concerts that much. Not that it matters for this particular purpose. But what I go there for, though, and I want to mention this to you, is to attend the Moth. So if you've never been to Moth Gathering, what that is, it's basically storytelling, but storytelling on steroids, right? So the way this works, and I need to tell you about this because it's so cool. So you go in, and then you pay a ticket to get into Warehouse Live. It's once a month. Sometimes it's the first Tuesday. Sometimes it's the second Tuesday of the month. I think in March it's the second. You go in, and then if you want to have a shot at the theme of the month, they always give you a theme, right? And you're supposed to come up with a 5 or 6 minute story on the theme. Then you put your name into a pot. And then what they do is that they draw names. So you may go on stage, you may not. And if you do go on stage, you basically compete for, first place, second place, whatever, on the theme. It's a lot of fun. If you like storytelling, if you like public speaking, you need to go and see that. The other thing that Warehouse Live has, which is kind of nice, is a very nice bar. I'm just going to let that, for what it's worth. So the Moth, look it up. Another interesting art venue is the Harrisburg Art Museum. So actually what that is, it's a very, very large, very long warehouse, and it's all murals. And I'm going to talk about murals. I talked about murals in a previous segment on downtown. I honestly did not realize how much mural exposure we had in this town. We have so many murals. And there is this one site that is called Houston Mural something. I can think of it now, but I will give that to you again in just about a minute. So what I started thinking about is, what's the difference between a mural, graffiti, and street art, right? Well, street art basically encompasses murals and graffitis. So the obvious difference is this: permission, right? Graffitis, typically, they were not really allowed. Somebody came in with spray cans and did some stuff on the wall. Murals, on the other hand, are typically commissioned. Also, there's a difference in scale. Murals can be super, super large. And again, if you go downtown, you will see absolutely amazing murals that span 2- and 3-story high buildings, and they are super, super wide. Really amazing stuff. Graffiti goes way back, way back. Apparently, they found some graffiti on the ruins of Pompeii. So we're talking, they go way back. And graffitis were anywhere from fairly simple to more complex. They could be political statement. They could be about a bunch of different things, or just pure pure artistic license there. I'm not sure we know what it is. Now, when I'm thinking graffiti, I'm thinking vandalism. I hate to be that way, but that's the first thought that comes to mind. But then again, there is Banksy. What do you make of that? That's definitely not vandalism. It's not allowed, but it's beautiful. So is it vandalism when it's not pretty? And of course, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So anyway, where do you go with this? So I live next to a railroad tracks. And whenever I walk my dog and a train goes by, well, there's my little art show there, because on every single freight train, there will be graffitis. And some of them are quite nice and some of them are not. So again, where does vandalism end and when does art start? And just so that you'll know, graffiti comes from graffito, which is an Italian word that means scribbled. And by the way, here's the website for the murals. It's www.houstonmuralmap.com. It's interactive. It's a lot of fun. It will blow your mind. Food. The food segment of this episode is about navigation, mostly navigation boulevard. And the reason that is that I will start with the original ninfas. Now, again, if you just moved to Houston or if you do not live in Houston, you don't know what that means. But the original ninfas is a big deal to us. This lady, Ninfa Lorenzo, started a Mexican restaurant. And she started with a food truck, right? No, she didn't start with a food truck at all. She started with a taco stand. And several decades later, she was basically named Woman of the Year by the National Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. So this is a woman who is very, very much part of our history in Houston, especially our culinary history. So the original Ninfas is on Navigation. It's on the 2700 block of Navigation. Probably my favorite dish there is the caldo Xochitl. It's basically soup. It's a broth with chicken. I know that sounds very, very basic, but this is really good basic, super good basic. And it's fairly inexpensive and makes you 2 meals, so there's a practical side to that, I guess. So Ninfa Lorenzo's was a force to reckon with. There are still some ninfas in this town, even though Mrs. Lorenzo passed away a while back. Her family basically took over. And what's I find interesting is that Tony Mandola is actually another one of those restaurateurs that have quite a bit of history in our town. And he married Ninfa's daughter. So they all kind of, it's kind of this aristocracy of cooking and restoration and so forth, and they're keeping it, Anyway, I think it's kind of interesting. So Tony Mandola is the one that I read an article about this. He basically said that in the 40s or 50s, the Lorenzos, Ninfa and her husband, were trying to decide whether to go to Los Angeles or Houston. And they flipped a coin. And they ended up in Houston and were very, very happy that they did. Another interesting place in EaDo is Rodeo Goat for burgers. You may want to look that up. It's actually quite nice. And then a little hole in the wall of a cafe if you want a true, Mexican experience. Go to Blanca's Cafe, especially for breakfast or brunch. It's on Milby. And it's lovely. It's lovely. Now, last but not least, when it comes to food in EaDo, you need to check out Nancy's Hustle. So the thing about Nancy's Hustle is this. First of all, they're only open for dinner. And I cannot help myself. I have to wonder, man, they must be doing well to be able to just be open for dinner, right? I'm always thinking, you'd make more money if you were open for lunch and dinner, but no, they open at 5. And if you want to go to Nancy's Hustle, start planning today for 2 weeks down the road because they are super busy and they're doing quite well. So I would definitely recommend that as well. All right, so now that you know where to go to enjoy a nice little concert or go to the Moth, now that you know where to go eat, and there's so many different options and a variety of different of price range as well in EaDo in terms of food. Now we're going to talk about real estate a little bit. The good news is that real estate in EaDo is pretty straightforward. This is an area that was mostly warehouses and factories and things like that for the longest time. And the actual residential development did not start there until beginning of 2000, mid-2000s. And I know because I was part of it. I worked for a builder at the time, and we had a couple of projects that we were working on in that area. So there is a lot of inventory in EaDo that's actually only about 10 to 15 years old, and it's mostly townhomes. So again, very, very straightforward. You can find some 2-2s, townhomes, 2-story in the low 3s, which is nice. And of course, you can find homes that are more expensive. Now, the one thing that the developers did well in EaDo is that because it is so close to downtown and because you could really take advantage of those skyline views, a lot of those townhomes have rooftop terraces. So you may want to check into that. If you want a rooftop terrace, that's where you need to go because you'll find quite a few options. So this is our segment on 77003 EaDo, east of downtown. Great place to be, great place to live, lots of stuff going on, and there is more happening every new month that comes around. The access to downtown is fantastic. The access to all the freeways is fantastic. So do not overlook that part of town. It's really worth checking into. Until we meet again, thank you for joining us. Stay tuned for more zip codes, more areas of town. We love Houston. Until then, au revoir.